welcome back to another Jazz Drummer Q-Tip of the Week. If you're new, my name is Quincy Davis. Thank you so much for stopping by. Please consider subscribing to this channel because I put out a lot of free drum lessons that many drummers have found helpful, and I think you will too. And if you like this lesson, go ahead and let me know by pressing that like button. So besides being really fun to play, I'm going to break down and discuss 10 great ways that funk will help you become a better drummer. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you? Because I'm ready. Let's go. All right, so practicing funk is going to help you really understand what groove and pocket are all about, regardless of the style, the genre, if it's a groove-oriented music, especially if it's in 4/4. But even if it's not in 4/4, it's going to help you apply the same properties and principles of groove and pocket to any style you play. So that's the first reason why you should be practicing funk a lot. And let's just break down what groove is. If I had to define what groove is to me, it is a way of expressing the time or the beat in a way that makes people want to move and dance. Okay, so that's what a groove is. And the only way to establish that is to be consistent and committed, fully committed. We're going to talk a little bit more about consistency, but you really have to commit to where you're putting it. It has to be consistent. And then what is pocket? Pocket is wherever you're putting that backbeat, that's what I think of as pocket, not these kinds of pockets. By the way, what do you think of my shorts? I never wear shorts, so I don't know. Maybe, no, don't tell me what you think of my shorts. I think you guys are all gonna rag on me. So in funk, wherever we put it, that's the pocket. And again, regardless of the style or the genre, there should always be some kind of pocket, right? So this will make you much more aware of the pocket in the groove because there's no hiding. It's all right there, and you have to be very clear and committed and consistent to where you're placing the groove and the pocket. Hey, so I just finished creating 5 new play-alongs that I think are going to really help you improve your funk drumming. That first track you heard me play at the beginning of this lesson is one of those tracks. I got 4 more, but they're all a little bit different, addressing different approaches and different styles of funk. So you got to download that if you want to improve your funk. The link is down below. Besides that, there's lots of other fun play-alongs in there that I've created just for you. Okay, so in order to play funk well, you got to be precise and you got to be accurate, right? Even the slightest move in where you're placing something, it could just throw the whole groove off. And that's why it's so important to work on funk, because it requires you to address your accuracy with where you're placing every note you're playing, right? And your precision. Accuracy and precision, and then being able to reproduce that beat after beat. That's not easy. It's something you have to practice, but the more you do it, the better you get at it. Control. Like Janet Jackson, control. You have to really be able to control every note that you're playing dynamically, right? And also obviously control where you're placing it. But specifically, if you're playing ghost notes, it's really important in funk that you get comfortable playing ghost notes, right? So that groove I was playing is kind of a James Brown-esque kind of groove, right? right? There's a lot of notes in between the accented notes that you hear, that you can hear very readily. Those in between notes, though, can add so much feel to your groove that it's very important that you work on that, but it requires a lot of control to be able to play those notes down here, right? You don't want them to get in the way of the more important, the accented notes. So, and I talk about this a lot, making sure that there's a difference between the accents and the non-accents. Accents, non-accents. You hear that? So it really makes a difference. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot more things going on than you realize sometimes when you listen to great drummers. So control. The next one's really important because it's all about discipline. You learn how to be a disciplined drummer because sometimes the band leader or the music does not want you to change what you do. You have to be consistent with whatever you're doing and don't get tempted to, like us drummers like to do. Sometimes the best thing we can do is just lay in the cut. That's it. Lay in the cut. And that's not easy. So you got to practice it. But the better you get at that, regardless of whatever other style you play, you're going to have a certain level of discipline that you bring to everything you do. Consistency. You got to have consistency. You learn how to be more consistent with two things, or I guess two ways of looking at that. Consistent with where you're playing, how you're playing. So if you notice, I'm specifically intending to play with the shaft on the side, right? And then for my accents. And my non-accented notes tip on top. So you get that. You see? Right? And that's consistent because I'm aware of it. I've practiced it, and it's something that you have to just kind of get used to. You have to ingrain. Same thing with the snare drum. I can consistently get that sound. Your backbeat shouldn't be changing constantly, right? So you want to be consistent with where you're playing on the kit physically, on the cymbal, whatever you're doing, beat to beat, measured bar to bar. You want to be consistent, but also consistent with where you're putting the time, where you're putting the groove, right? Where you're putting that backbeat, that pocket. Because if that's always shifting, then the groove is going to suffer and people aren't going to want to dance. Okay? So you got to be very consistent. And again, this applies to any genre you're playing. We have to learn how to be very consistent with where we're playing physically and where we're playing internally, right? With the pulse. Space. The space in between the notes is what really can make your groove feel magical, right? If you embrace the space. Ooh, that's a good quote. Embrace the space. If you embrace the space, then you're really going to make every note that you play count. And a lot of times drummers kind of gloss over the space, or they fill up the space. They play too many notes. Sometimes the best thing we can do is play fewer notes and focus on the most important parts of a groove. And don't be so tempted to fill it up, because as soon as we start filling it up, then a lot of times our groove starts to suffer, okay? So space. What's that quote? Embrace the space. I got to give a quick shout out to my guy, Adam Deitch, for starting his Deitch Academy, where he's breaking down all kinds of great things for us drummers, specifically funk grooves, all kinds of funk grooves, and talking about the history of hip-hop drumming and breaking down some of those grooves. So you got to check that out. Of course, I'm going to put the link down below. Sign up for that today. You're going to love it. Right? Syncopation. Syncopation. Practicing funk is going to improve your syncopation, because funk is all about syncopation. And it doesn't mean that it's littered with syncopation constantly, but the syncopation that is added or that is in a groove is all it adds an element of intrigue to whatever you're playing. So if you're playing, if you do that, but if you go, you see how that adds a little more intrigue? Rather than just no syncopation. So what funk's going to do for you is help you get more comfortable playing and adding, imparting syncopation, which we should, as drummers, absolutely. I mean, all musicians, but especially drummers, we need to be very comfortable with syncopation, okay? So practicing funk, working on a specific groove that has specific types of syncopation on certain parts of the time will improve your ability to fill those in-between beats that syncopation is built on. Okay? There you go. Work on soloing in a funk context. It will improve your jazz. Your jazz soloing will improve your funk soloing, right? Your overall fluidity will improve. Your ability to use syncopation. You heard what I just played. It was very syncopated, right? As opposed to on the beat. A lot of times, if you're not comfortable with syncopation, you play on the beat. But when you listen to a good funk drummer, you listen to Steve Gadd, right? Very funky, and it's really funky because he's using a lot of syncopation in his soloing. So really work on soloing in the style, and don't just think, okay, soloing and you can use the same language regardless of the style. No, play the style, solo in the style. And that's going to overall expand your wealth of vocabulary that you can draw upon, regardless of the style, okay? So your pool of language that you're going to be drawing from will build and increase and grow, and it'll make you a much more dynamic soloer. So as you can hear, these toms are tuned much lower than my jazz drums. And as a result, there is no rebound. There's very little rebound. Even the snare drum doesn't rebound as much because I have something on it and it's tuned a little lower. So, but that's good because you will improve your chops and your ability to use your wrists to create your strokes rather than always relying on the bounce. You have to play much stronger, right? So it's going to really improve your chops. Same thing if you're playing rock. Those toms are really low, and you're not going to get much help from the heads. So therefore, you got to work a little harder. That's going to help everything you do and build your overall chops and your wrist strength. Lastly, no wasted notes. Every note counts. It really, really does. It forces you to pay attention to every note, no matter how loud or how soft that note is. Every note counts, and it can make or break the groove, okay? So it requires you to practice and get used to paying close attention to every note that you're playing, because as I said, it can really affect the groove, either positively or negatively, okay? Every note counts. All right, so that is the lesson. 10 great ways that working on funk will help you become a better drummer. And it's really true. Once I started working on funk and really shedding it, it really opened up my playing a lot. So you definitely want to take advantage of the skills that come along with working on funk. And besides, like I said at the beginning, it's so much fun. By the way, if you really want to have some fun and work on different kinds of grooves within the funk style and genre, you got to check out my digital download store, where I've actually uploaded 5 new funk tracks just for you, specifically to work on your groove, your consistency, all these things that I just spoke about. So you got to check it out. The link is down below. Fun play-alongs. All right, so until the next time, I want you to have a lot of fun working on your funk grooves and practice hard, but as always, practice smart. Take care. Bye-bye.